welcome to the Football Manc Cave chats with Jim Salveson. How are you doing, Jim? You all right?
I'm good, Ian. How about yourself?
I'm good. Did I get your second name right there?
So, do you know what? It's really weird, this. I'm not even entirely sure how to pronounce my second name, which sounds really weird. I've kind of always said it's Salveson, like in this quick way, but it's Scandinavian and it's Salveson, I think, if you pronounce it properly. So, whatever you like's fine.
Happy days. So, how's lockdown treating you? This is a question, obviously, we're asking, and it's just a bit of a weird time, so it's good to sort of see everyone's different perspective. How's it treating?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different answer professionally, and it's a different answer personally. Professionally, I think for anyone working in football, it's a challenge right now with no football being played and nothing on the telly and all that kind of thing. Actually creating content from nothing is a challenge, but I've always enjoyed a challenge. Personally, and you're not really allowed to say this, but there's aspects of it that I don't mind, I quite enjoy. And obviously, there's the whole hideous element of it going outside your front door and the dangers that people face and the loss of life and the incredible work the NHS doing, and not to belittle that in any way or not to put a negative spin on that, but actually the opportunity to spend more time with my family and spend time with my little boy has been great. And my commute's been stripped out of my day, apart from today I'm in the Sports Social studios, obviously. And we get to play football in the garden and all that kind of thing. So the things I wasn't doing before, I like looking at positives anyway. So I'm trying to find the positives in it. And that, for me, being able to spend more time with my family has been a big one.
And that's the thing. There's no point. There is a lot of negativity going on, but you've always got to look at life in a positive aspect. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's same with me and my wife. Obviously, we're both at home. We've got 2 toddlers, testing about 99% of the time, but do you know what? It's nice just to chill with them, and like today, it's beautiful weather, so out and about in the pool. But there is that thing, especially with kids. You have that fear of you need to keep them in a bit of a bubble at the same time. So they've not really been out at that much. It's kind of weird. I've been out and about on walks and kind of seeing life just kind of slowly getting back to normal a little bit, or cars on the road and stuff like that, and it is, and I keep saying to my eldest daughter, it's a moment in time. This I savor it type thing, and make sure you grasp everything you can.
I think kids will come out of this, particularly. So my lad's 7, and he's aware that there is a virus and that it can cause you harm. And we've got a doctor living next door, and he's aware of the work that he does, and he likes getting out and doing the clapping and all that kind of thing, and supporting the NHS. So it's giving him awareness of the work the NHS does, which is nice. But I think he'll come out of this and he'll remember this period of the time as when his mum and dad were home all the time. And he'll remember getting up in the morning and kind of doing Joe Wicks every day and being able to play in the garden. I think that kind of age group, and I think as you get a bit older, probably you're more concerned and more worried about stuff. But that kind of age group, I think, will actually remember this period of time quite fondly.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on, obviously you spoke, you're in the Sports Social arena. What is the Sports Social for people who've not heard of it?
Well, the Sports Social is a project run by an organisation called VoiceWorks, which is based mainly in Manchester, but around the UK as well. They're the first ever voice agency that covers every aspect of audio for brands and organisations, from audio branding to branded content to voice search. So anything you can think of concerning audio and concerning kind of companies and brands getting involved, they cover it. Sports Social is the sports division of that, and it looks after the audio content for global sports brands and organizations that want to be aligned with sports, but also at the same time we have our own brand products that we create that cover sport on an on-demand basis for the public. So we have a Premier League product called Football Social Daily, which is a podcast, but also we provide short form audio content via smart speakers, so via Alexa devices and via Google Homes and whatnot, to kind of help people keep up to date with what their teams are doing. I kind of see it as Radio V2, if you like, because I've worked in radio all my career, and there's a weird thing where people will sit down and like sports report on 5 Live. I remember when I was kind of 14, 15, driving back from the rugby with my dad, and we put on sports report and wait for the scores to come in and the team updates. Well, we're now in a world where you don't have to wait for something to come onto the radio anymore. You can just ask your smart speaker device or your assistant on your phone, what was the score in this game, or who won this game, or what's the latest news on my team, and you get that content instantly. So yeah, we help provide that content and create something that's kind of human voiced as opposed to text to speak voice, like the Alexa voice stuff that you get a lot of the place. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's kind of what Sports Social is.
And how are you finding content when there's no sport on?
Challenging, but also kind of in a good way. I mean, so our Football Social podcast, Premier League, Football Social Daily, is a daily Premier League podcast, as the name suggests. So 7 days a week, we do a podcast, kind of 45 minutes to an hour, covering off the latest news. Kind of the idea being that people can come back day after day after day and kind of get the latest content they need about their team or their sport, as opposed to maybe other podcasts that release on a weekly basis as a kind of summary. So kind of short burn, but regular touch point content. We haven't been doing 7 a week for obvious reasons. When the coronavirus hit and the lockdown happened, we made the decision to go to 3 a week, to reduce that down, because we felt that's how much content we could deliver on a weekly basis and still be interesting. And I think that's the important thing with podcasts. Yeah. We're not in a situation like a certain sports-based radio station that I've listened to recently that's done topics like your favorite comedy films and your favorite biscuits, which, as entertaining as that content is, I don't think that's what your audience is tuning in for. We don't have to do that. We can just drop down our output and go to 3 a week. So it has been challenging, and you have found yourself talking about the morals of whether the game should be resuming on a Premier League basis on several occasions. But at the same time, I'm really proud of what the team have done, and those 3 podcasts a week have been of an incredibly high quality, and there is still enough content out there if you look hard enough, be it the news about football resuming, or be it players acting stupidly in the public, or be it just transfer rumours. There is content out there still.
Yeah, so you touched on it there about football resuming. What's your thoughts on this? Because obviously it come out yesterday that I think is there been 6 positive tests over the weekend. Obviously, they're wanting to get players back into training. The Premier League, you can sort of see that they're pushing to restart. But for me, I feel like it just needs. I don't know about the null and void, but I just think it's a case of it's a moment in time never going to be repeated. So why don't you just hold it until everything's safe on? Next season might not happen, or do you know what I mean? Like shorten or compact next season, or do something with it. But it's a case of life slow getting back. Don't rush it at the minute. Do you know what I mean? Don't have that second wave.
Yeah, it's a really difficult decision, and I actually have a lot of sympathy for the Premier League in terms of how they decide to play this, because I think you're right. If it was any other situation that wasn't a professional game, you'd go either right, that's it, cancel the season, we don't finish it, and instantly. I mean, I don't see how you can award titles or relegation if you don't finish the season. I don't think it's fair deciding it any other way. If it was any other situation, you go, right, that's it, let's sack it off, let's not do it. And it does feel too early at the moment to be resuming playing football as we kind of know it to be played. I think you have to take the fans' question out of the equation, because as much as fans are so important to football, and we've seen with the Geisterspiels in Germany, the ghost games, that actually not playing with fans creates a really weird scenario and almost makes the games feel like they're being played at 80%. But at the same time, I don't think we can wait till halfway through 2021 for games with fans to resume, and I think that's a likely date. So yeah, on one side it feels too early. If I was a football player, would I want to be playing at the moment? 100% no. I agree completely with what Troy Deeney's saying about you've got to put your family first and protect them. So I wouldn't want to do it. On the other side of this, it's a really perilous financial situation, and they're talking about 300 odd million quid that the Premier League would have to pay back to just TV rights holders if those games don't get played. And football can't afford 300 million quid. We see it as this incredibly wealthy sport, but there's so many clubs teetering on a knife edge, not just in the lower leagues, but in the Premier League as well. Teams like Bournemouth and Burnley, who will be in serious financial problem if the league doesn't resume at some point. So, I mean, it's a really difficult decision. And I think probably on the balance, if they can do it in a safe way, if they can do it in a way that protects players and protects the people involved in the sport, and a way that doesn't put additional pressure on key workers and public services. So, for example, the NHS staff that will have to be at games, the ambulances that will have to be at games, then I think it does have to resume for the sake of football. It feels like it's a financial decision, but at the same time, if we want football to continue, you have to take into consideration the finances of the game as well.
Yeah, it is. It's such a tough one, obviously, and it's clearly evident now that money does really like control football. You know what I mean? You look at the lower leagues; it was quite easy to sort of not null and void the seasons of yet, but finish the seasons. Scottish Premiership, do you know what I mean? That's been awarded. So it's only the Premiership and the Championship. I'm not too clear on League One as of yet. What's happening? So it is money driven, but like I said previously, surely it's a time in life that's never going to be repeated. So I think everyone's got to use the common sense. I don't even want to take my kids outside, so I don't want to go for a game of football if I was a footballer. Everyone's ready to go back to work, but you've got to think of the bigger picture, which is obviously safety. Like I said, NHS having extra support there takes it away from the hospitals and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a debate that'll just keep rolling and rolling until such a time it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, I do get the arguments, and I mean the government saying, "Oh, we need football back to raise morale." I think that's kind of bottom of the list. It's not. It's not about us having something to watch on the telly. And I mean, I'm a West Ham fan. Watching West Ham's never raised my morale in my life of watching football. So that's not a consideration. It's got to be safe, but at the same time, the financial pressures are there, and a lot of it feels like it could be resolved if people work together. So, like new kits being launched on June the 30th or whatever it is, putting pressure on that, and the kind of idea, surely you just put that back. TV companies suggesting that they want money back. I mean, I don't know who's in the right there, but a TV company is going to hand those refunds back. If I've got a Sky Sports subscription and I'm not getting Premier League football, am I going to get my subscription money back? No, it's not going to happen. So I think it's a time for people to work together, and it's a time for collaboration rather than commercial competition. There is a sensible solution, but I'm not entirely sure it's been hit on yet.
Yeah.
And I think those recent tests that show there are 6 cases. I mean, yeah, there are 6 cases, and those individuals will be put into isolation now. But that was out of 1,000 or 1,300 or however many people it was that were tested to be involved with the Premier League. So it's kind of a small case scenario, and I doubt it'll be that much of a delay in terms of plans of getting it back up and running. I think probably 3rd week in June we're going to see something, would be my best guess.
Yeah, I thought that sort of end of June, beginning of July.
Yeah.
Now you have another podcast on the left side.
Yeah.
Is that focused similar to Sports Social, obviously the coronavirus, Premier League stories, or is that something completely different?
It's it's football focused, but that's probably where the similarity ends. Whereas Football Social Daily and Sports Social are kind of proper football, if you like. So it's very driven around news and opinion and stats almost. On the left side, just ignores all of that. So on the left side, I launched about 5 years ago with a friend of mine and an old radio colleague called Ant McGinley. And we had a concept of making a radio show that talked about football, and a podcast that treated football news in the same way as a radio commercial breakfast show would. So short, sharp, punchy content that can be consumed really quickly. And that kind of morphed into a I hate the word comedy podcast because I'm not a comedian, and I feel the word comedy puts pressure on me to be funny. But it's kind of not quite like that. It's basically a
Talk
short.
in cheek.
Yeah, it's kind of like a 10-minute podcast that pokes fun at football, essentially, and takes kind of the big stories from the week that have happened and then kind of shifts them and gives us a slightly sideways view on it. I've had it compared, and again, these are lofty comparisons, so I'm not saying that we match up to this in any way, but people have compared On the Left Side, the funny football show, as we call it, with Nish Kumar's MASH report and Charlie Brooker's Screen Wipe. So, and I think in tone, they're probably quite similar, kind of that slightly sarcastic, kind of slightly cynical worldview. In terms of standard, I mean, they're up here, we're down there. But yeah, that's how we look at football.
It's not bad though. Like I say, I think to have something a little bit different is always good. Obviously, nobody just wants to sometimes listen to just football news, and they want a little bit of what they're thinking sort of put back to them a little bit. And I've listened to On the Left Side quite a lot, and I do enjoy it. Like I say, it's nice, short, sharp, and I can usually listen to it on a quick journey. That's where I seem to get me a little bit of time in the car.
It's all about adding texture as well. I think one of the beautiful things about podcasting is shows shouldn't be in competition with each other, and some people take that more seriously than others. But it's about kind of adding texture to the landscape. So if there's a podcast here that's doing this serious chat, then there's plenty of room for something over here that's a little bit stupid. So it's kind of like adding to the landscape, if you like. And the biggest compliment we've been paid about the show is from people who hate football, who've gone, I really like the show. It doesn't matter that I don't like football, I can still enjoy it, which I think is a nice compliment as to what we're doing.
Brilliant stuff. What obviously got a couple of shows there. So for somebody who wanted to get into podcasting or wanted to start their own show or get into sort of sports broadcasting, in a quick summary, how does a process go from nothing to your first episode?
Wow, it's a big question for a quick answer. I mean, if you want to, what I say to people is, if you want to do it, just do it. I mean, if you have an idea on Tuesday, there's no reason why you can't record your first episode on Wednesday. Particularly from a podcasting world, it's kind of a slow burn, and your audience builds and builds and builds. And those first few episodes are likely to be, unless you've got a big name or you've got a platform to publish something on, those first few episodes are going to be you, your cat, and your mate, and that's kind of it. So it's a great way to kind of find your voice, is just to buy the kit you need, or use your phone if you want to do it on that, however you're going to do it, and make some podcasts and do what you want to do. And you might get 4 episodes in and go, okay, we need to pause and take a bit of a review and change our direction, but that's fine because you haven't built that audience. Once you start building that audience, that's when you need to worry about things like regular releases and keeping your content the same and having a brand identity, all those things that come later. So firstly, I'd say just do it. Just get out there and make your show. And again, the brilliant thing about podcasting is there are no rules. So don't copy anything else you've heard. Don't necessarily do the old format of 3 people sitting around a table talking about football. You can do whatever you like. There are no rules. So you don't need to know anything about the medium to actually make something that works. Sure, you can get advice on stuff from professionals later down the line and kind of tweak it a little bit, but just do what you want to do from the time being. And the second one would be work out what your niche is. So there are 1 million podcasts in the UK now that have been launched. Wow. Most of them get no more than kind of 100 listens or something like that, but there are still loads of gaps in the market. So what is your niche? For example, with On the Left Side, our niche was short form funny content for football, which didn't exist, so we kind of found that little gap. For Football Social Daily, there are hundreds of football podcasts, hundreds of Premier League podcasts, but there were no daily Premier League podcasts. So that was kind of our window, that was our niche. So yeah, identify your niche, work out what it is you want to do, and then just do it.
Just go for it. Perfect stuff. I'm going to finish on a would you rather.
Okay.
Seeing as you are a music player at XS Manchester, as you put it. Would you rather have music as the only thing you listen to, or have football as the only thing you watch?
Do you know what? That's really tough. I'd go for music, though. I think music has the ability to transport you to pretty much anywhere. And it's the ultimate mood lifter. Whereas football, like I say, I'm a West Ham fan. It brings me down more than lifts me up. So yeah, I go for music.
Joe, my wife asked me that question just before lockdown, and I said music, exactly the same point. It can transport you to some, like a memory. It can lift your mood. It can take you somewhere. It can remind you of someone. And then obviously lockdown happened, and I was like, well, I've got no option. Music it is, basically. And to be fair, like you say, you can have it in your ears. It's brilliant. But yes, I think most people would choose music over football unless you're a real diehard.
Yeah. I think football can offer those little moments, can offer those absolutely ecstatic highs that maybe music can't quite do in the same way. But they are few and far between, and they are fleeting as well. Yeah. Whereas, I think the world would be a much poorer place without music in it.
100%. Right. Thank you for your time, Jim. Before we go,
cheers, Ian.
People find the Sports Social and find on the left side.
Right, so if you want to find the Sports Social smart speaker content we create, you can go to your smart speaker device. If it's Alexa, you can say, Alexa, open Sports Social. If it's Google, you can say, OK, Google, talk to Sports Social, and you'll get talked through the process of how to set your team and all that kind of thing. If you want to find our podcast, Football Social Daily, you can just search Football Social Daily, find it wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Acast, wherever it is. And if you want to find on the left side, it's the same. We're everywhere. Just search on the left side. And you'll find us and have a listen, have a subscribe, and tell us what you think.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jim, for your time.
Nice one, Ian.
Enjoy lockdown.
Cheers, mate.